Hello, welcome to Miniature Realms. My name's Stuart. Brand new company, Knott's Hobbies, have just sent me some of their new dry brushing and weathering kit to try out.
Miniature Realms is proudly sponsored by Baron of Dice, premium wargaming dice. Over 500 styles, over 4,000 customer reviews. Welcome to the best dice on the planet. So Knott's Hobbies is a brand new company, and thank you very much, Jake, for sending me everything that you currently do in your range. It was very, very kind of you. So let's start by looking at the weathering sponge holder. Just press on the end here, the little grabber comes out and you can pop your sponge in. Now, the sponge that they've provided is quite dense. I've not used this kind of sponge before for weathering, and it's really quite a pleasing effect. So I'll definitely show you that in a moment. But of course you can use your regular kind of sponge that we've all been using for years for a bit of chipping here or there, and I think I'll definitely be using both kinds with this tool. This is my previous video, actually, my tutorial on the new Rat Ogres. I was using the new style sponge, and it gives a very kind of full, almost like a heavy dry brush effect, and I really liked it. There's still sponge chipping, so to speak, but because it's a much more dense sponge, the detail is closer together on it, and I really quite like the effect. So very good for building up layers of colour on flatter surfaces as an alternative to doing airbrushing or dry brushing or something. Really cool, and something I'm going to continue playing around with, I think. So next up we have their brush. So nice plain cardboard box, but inside you have a screw top tin, and it's pretty standard brush soap as things go. It beats the smell test. It's really nice smelling. It smells more like a hair product or something like that, so pretty happy with that. And if those of you haven't used brush soap before, I really recommend it. I've been using it for years. I've used a few different brands now. A little bit of water on your brush. This is one of my standard brushes here. Just gently run it around after use in there, making sure you're forming a tip, a bit like when you're adding some paint to your brush. Twist it around, and then you can just reshape your brush and leave a little bit of soap on. I tend to put my protector on and leave it overnight like that, and then just wash the soap out in the morning. Then the next thing we have is this little plastic box here. Now this is for the dry brushing. It looks like a retainer box for those of you who had braces when you're younger, and there's a bit of foam, a sponge inside. It's quite a coarse foam. It reminds me of the kind of foam if you've had fish tanks that goes in the filter in those. I don't know if that's deliberate or not. And the idea is you just add a little bit of water, let it soak through. You don't want it too wet. It's a way of dampening your brush just slightly when you're dry brushing to stop that chalky effect that you sometimes get, but you don't want to completely soak your bristles because then you can't really dry brush. And these are the 3 dry brushes that they have provided as well. There are 3 sizes. They are fairly close together. I'm hoping that they'll expand their range at some point. So we have a small, medium and large going left to right there. This is the kind I've been using at the moment, very similar to the Artist Opus style, which kind of made dry brushing famous recently. They have a more of a rounder, flatter end, a little bit denser. So these are slightly different, slightly lighter and fluffier. But I also love this old Citadel dry brush with a flat edge here, and the large one is a bit reminiscent of that with a slightly rounded tip. So I do like to use different sizes, so I'd like to see them expanded. That'll be really good. This is the small and medium, and they really are very close together, so they're fantastic so far. I've used them, they're great, but I'd like to see something probably at least half the size. This is the texture board that they provide, so very thin, a little bit of wood, nice and light and easy to use. The idea here is that you work away your paint on the texture rather than using dishcloths or kitchen roll or something where the little filaments and the little fragments can get into your paint. And here I am all set up, ready for it. So there's a little bit of moisture in there. Moisten the bristles just ever so slightly. I do brush that off onto my hand just to make sure it's not over wet. And I'm actually putting it straight on the palette here. You can use a separate palette, but I'm using it straight on here, building a little bit of texture up over time, because this board is pretty flat. Some texture boards you can buy do have texture built in, so you could practice your dry brushing on it to see the effect before you then place it on the miniature. This hasn't got a lot of that, but after a lot of use, believe me, it will pick some up, and I might even glue some sand or something to it. But when you take most of your paint off and then just do really light sort of circular motions here, I'm not an expert when it comes to dry brushing. I'm an okay dry brusher, I'm a decent dry brusher. I'm not like a Byron Ord of Artist Opus who has put really brought dry brushing to the fore and brought it up to new levels. So I'm never going to pretend to be that, but it's definitely something that I like to use, especially with metallics. And this brush does a pretty good job. It's very, very nice and soft. So a lot softer than the ones I have been using. So very, very good for doing that kind of light tickle on effect. And I suppose the way I paint a lot, if you follow my painting tutorials, I do a lot of underpainting. So a la slap chop, as coined by the honest gamer Rob, but that technique's been used for years. But I'm glad that it's got a kind of slang painting name for it now, because more people are trying to use it. And I think it's absolutely fantastic for that kind of thing. It'll be very good at just catching the edges so that you can then apply glazes and things over the top. With them being very soft and splayed, I'm not sure how well they will last as compared to some of the more denser packed circular ones like the Artisopus style. Only time will tell. With those denser ones, I find that they wear away at the top rather than losing bristles, but they shorten, and once they get too short, then they're too dense and hard to use for dry brushing anyway. So I often find that I stop using them at that stage. At this stage is great for stuff like this. And then for cleaning them off, try not to get them too wet, just to dip in a little bit of touch of water. I've probably got a little bit too much here, but you can give it a really good scrub out. And the paint comes out pretty well, so proving that the brush soap works. So even if you don't end up buying their dry brushes, I definitely recommend the brush soap. It seems pretty good to me and at a pretty reasonable price. And then what I like to do once I've got enough soap on there, again, you can leave it in the bristles just to condition it. So just wiping the excess soap off, and I'll just leave it in. You can always wash that out in the morning. Not everyone will like to do that. I'm not sure whether Byron would suggest that for his brushes. Who knows? But I definitely find it adds a little bit of life to mine. Let's try this one. I like the look of this large one with a slightly unique shape. I quite like the shape of this. It's got a little bit more firmness to it, a little bit less sort of loose sprayed hairs at the edges, and just drying it off a little bit on my hand before I get the paint on the brush. And then take most of it off on the texture bores. As I say, that texture will build up over time. You can just see it going into the grain. It means it's soaking the paint up, but you're not picking up anything on your bristles. So if I was using kitchen roll there, you can pick up little fragments of paper, which you find you end up brushing on. I'm just going to use the bottom of this Skaven device here, should we say, maybe for a future tutorial, but just playing around with it at the moment because it's got some lovely wood grain at the bottom, which hopefully will show up on camera. I'll end up priming over this again, I think. And I really like this one. This is my favourite of the brushes, having used all three sizes so far, some during that rack toga and some just playing around here. This one I find I've got the most control over. There's a nice balance between the softness and the shape that it keeps, so the firmness as well, and I like it. I like the fact that while it's the largest, it does taper in a little bit, which gives you a little bit more control about where you place the bristles. So if I was going to suggest purchasing any of these, unless you're going to get the whole set, I'd say get a couple of these, because the sizes are so similar. You're not going to get an awful lot of difference. So hopefully they will, as I said earlier, expand that range and bring out something a little bit smaller. If it's in this shape, even better. But I really like this one. I think I'll be buying a few of these because this is really, really good and really, really picks out that detail without giving you that kind of horrible, chalky, smeary marks. There's definitely an added element of control to this one and smoothness over the others. I think the others will be very, very good for that underpainting, that slap chop-esque kind of thing that I like to do sometimes, and usually over white anyway, so I'm just really kind of picking out the edges. But this is really, really good for that sort of slowly building up textures and things. I think it's a bit of a good one. I wanted to try out some metallics as well, and again, I'm just using the smallest one here because they're super, super soft, and soft brushes I always find really, really good with metallics. And see how smooth that is. It looks like I've painted on a couple of thin coats there, and I've built this up just by dry brushing exactly the same techniques. It looks like it's heavy because it's covered so well, so the soft brushes are really good for metallics. And here we go back to that tutorial again, and I'm just showing you a few shots from that tutorial because I think it demonstrates really well that these lighter, softer brushes have a really good place when you're trying to only get the very, very, very tops of things like the hair here without getting it onto the flat surfaces of the skin. So I've done the skin here with an airbrush to build up the base layers, but I still wanted to go back and dry brush on the fur before I glazed over the top with contrast. And if you've watched the tutorial, you'll understand because I talked about why I was doing that. Sometimes with some of the heavier dry brushes I've got, the danger with the firmer bristles that I would get those flat areas, but here I'm able to be extremely light with it and only get it in the areas that I want it. So I do like these brushes. They've definitely got their uses. I'd like to see the range expand and maybe have some of those firmer ones in there as well for more of a complete range, but they've definitely got a use for things like this. So I do like the mixture of these super soft ones. Just like one half the size at least, a little bit smaller, and a couple of firmer ones as well, and we could have a really nice range here. So it's still pretty early days with these brushes. I've used them in one painting tutorial and I've played around with them for this video. I do like them. As I said, the range is a little bit small at the moment. This is a brand new company, so I'd like to see that range expand to give it a really full opinion, but I like the ones they've got. I think you still need more. Someone like me who likes to use dry brushing for a number of different things in my more day-to-day job of commission painter and making content for here, I still need to supplement the range at the moment with some others, so I'll still be using some of those firmer round ones that I've already got, but these are really nice additions and they cover something I didn't have before, and that large, as I said, is a really nice brush, and I'll be buying a couple more of those for sure. So you can currently pick up the complete dry brushing kit for $34.99. So I'll give you the board, the 3 brushes that I've shown you, the dampening sponge, the brush soap, and you get your dice bag as well chucked in. But of course you can buy them on their own. So the brushes are all $5.99 each. So even if you just wanted to pick up one, I definitely say that large one is very good, and it's a nice sort of halfway point between those firmer brushes and those really soft ones. The brush soap is great. Seems fine to me. There are lots of ones out there on the market, but this is a decent enough price, and if you happen to be ordering from them, then why not? Things like the texture palette, there's loads on the market at the moment. This is relatively inexpensive. I know there'll be people that say it's just a bit of wood, then that's cool, use a bit of wood, etc. But and the dampening sponge and stuff seems pretty good as well. If you're interested in the weathering sponges, I'd really like those sponges. I'm not quite sure what type of sponge that is. I've not used it before, so I'm glad I've got those now, and I would restock with them. The little weathering sponge holder, I have seen them before, but at $2.99 that's very inexpensive, and then the complete kit for $4.99 for both things is a really good little saving there as well.
Thank you very much for watching, and thank you very much to Knott's Hobbies for sending all that kit along for me to try out. There's a link in the video description where you can go and buy all of that stuff with a 10% discount, so do go and check that out if you're interested in anything you've seen me using today. I have a series of videos planned that I hope to get round to later this year, shorter tutorial videos where I talk a little bit about some of the techniques and things that I use. I'm sure I will cover dry brushing and the way I do it, and that works for my tutorials and the way I paint at some point as well, so do look out for that one. And I'll definitely be keeping an eye on Knott's Hobbies and seeing how they might expand that range of brushes and kit as well. But thank you very much for watching, take care, and I'll catch you soon.